Hi, this is David at Mash IT. Today we're going to be doing an unboxing and a review of the Jonsbo A4 ITX case in space grey. We've got this one in because there seems to be very little information on YouTube, or the internet for that matter, for this case, and it does look quite nice. So we needed a new editing machine for Gary on the desk for his video editing. We're hoping this is going to make a quite nice ideal candidate. It's a bit bigger than the usual sort of case that we would be getting in, so let's unbox it. Seems to be quite well presented. Inside the box, an instruction manual, and feet not attached to the case. That's unusual. They look quite nice. Quite solid aluminium feet with rubber bottom. Let's pop the case out. Oh, dust filter. So far nicely presented. We've got a PCIe cable and there's the dust filter that fell out. There's the side. Remove the foam. Right, how do we get into this? Here we go. Try not to scratch the desk. So there we are. A lot bigger than the usual sort of case we're looking at on this channel. Tempered glass panels on both sides. Stick on it at the moment. Now this is a shoebox sort of design with the graphics card on one side and the motherboard vertical the other side. Very much like an elongated Dan A4. Or the Ghost we've previously reviewed. Quality, it feels very sturdy. I like the colour. This is the space grey. They had silver, space grey or black, so we just thought we'd give this a try. It's unusual. It's got a nice mesh top, and it has room for two 120mm fans in the top and a 240 radiator if you wish. We're going to go for an air-cooled build because I'm not a big fan of water cooling. And on the bottom you see that there's two dust filters there for another two 120mm fans. So the hope with this is that we can build a reasonably powered PC and then have two fans at the bottom pushing the air up and two fans at the top exhausting, and therefore giving us decent temperatures inside the case. Now we're going to do just a very basic build today with just some components I've got on hand, just so that you can see the build into this case. It is only a placeholder build. We will do the full build later once we decide what we can kind of fit into this machine, ready for a video editing rig. So let's try and open it up. So that just slides back and off. It's got some nice rubber grommets underneath that keep it in place, and it felt very sturdy. It wasn't rattly or loose in there. How do these come out? Okay, it lifts and slides out, and this is nice. You've actually got foam padding which secures it on the inside, so it sits in there very nicely, and some, actually I see there's some rubber in there as well. The other side. So that's a nice touch. So we can see we've got plate here and here for our 2.5-inch drives, and what's nice is actually supplied a load of the screws in here and an Allen key. That's a nice little touch. So this will be the side for our motherboard, and on the other side we've got a nice like 325mm slot for a GPU. The cable here for our power supply, which will be slotted in behind these drives here, and on the front ports wise we've got a USB 3 a USB-C and the power button, and that's it. And the good thing is it is a proper USB-C connector, not sometimes you get it on a USB 3, which is a real pain in the backside. Right, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put this back together very quickly, and I just want to have a quick look compared to another reasonable size case that we own, which is the T150, which is my usual case for this sort of a build. Now, I do love the T150, but it is actually quite a bulky case. It's nice having the carry handle, but I wanted something a little bit smarter and a little bit smaller. That went in. That way. It's nice that it's all toolless as well. It's a nice feature, but it feels, not only is it toolless, it feels solid when it's together. If anyone's had some of the toolless cases, I'm just trying to think, oh, the N-Case M1 comes to mind. They pop together and that's lovely, but they feel a little bit rattly. The T150 is a bit like, it feels a bit rattly where those push clips just push in and there's nothing to screw it in. Although this pushes in, it's hefty and solid. Right, let's compare that to the T150. Gary, thank you. So this is a T150 as a size comparison. So you can see it's a little bit shorter. It is a little bit narrower. I mean, looks wise, I think it's a lot better. Let's try and put it side on so you can see that it is actually so shorter. I put that to the back. I put that to the back as well. There you go. So you can see there's about an inch in the depth to it as well. So although that's, you know, specs wise it doesn't seem like an awful lot, it feels a much more compact machine. I'm hoping, as I say, with the layout, with the fans at the top and the bottom, it's going to give us a nice air-cooled build. Obviously a lot of people will buy this for the 240mm radiator, but I'm not a big fan of water coolers. I don't like the pump noise. I'd much rather have a decent air cooler with noctua fans to keep it quiet. Right, I'm going to cut that now, and I'm going to come back with the parts and start building into it and seeing how it looks. Right, so the parts I'm going to be using in this build, as I said, this is a placeholder build just to see what it's like building in this case. We will be changing it for our final rig, but this is just what we've had on hand. We've got an SF600 power supply, more than handle anything we're going to be putting in it here tonight. We're going to be using an EVGA RTX 2070 dual slot card. Obviously these will fit in pretty much anything, which is quite handy, being dual slot. For the motherboard, we've got a Asus Strix Z490i ITX motherboard, and it's got a 10500 i5 CPU in there. And I've just left a standard, this is the L9i low profile CPU cooler. I would put something much more bulky on than this long term, but this is just to test out the build. And I've got 16GB of 3200 Corsair RAM. Fan wise, we've just going to be using just the ugly Noctua browns for tonight. Again, because I've got loads on hand, I've got 4 120mm fans, the NF F12s, 2 for the top, 2 for the bottom. Now obviously with ITX boards you get very few fan headers, so I'll also be using, fortunately come with a lot of Noctuas, the Y cables. So you can obviously plug those into the motherboard and run 2 fans off each of those. So that's ideal. And that's really about it. Oh, and also, sorry, I've got 2 M.2 SSDs on this little daughter board here for this Z490 motherboard. Eventually I will be putting more storage in, but as I say, this is just a placeholder build just to test this case for tonight. Right, let's start the build. These are nice, easy, removable dust filters. It's quite handy when I clean it. This is a nice feature. The feet are actually magnetic. It's actually quite a nice little premium feature there in this case. Obviously we screw them in as well, but that's nice. So, having just taken the PSU shroud off and the drive bay shroud, it's quite a big heavy unit that obviously sits on there next to the motherboard. We're going to screw the power supply in, but I've been debating which way to put it in. Now my concern is, if we have the fan facing out here, it will bring air in through the back, so I think it's going to be bringing in hot air from the back of the GPU, which I don't think is going to be ideal. If I have it this way in, so the back plate is up against here, it's got a small gap. If I can just show you. Only about, I don't know, 15-20 mil between the power supply and this plate. But it will have 120 mil fan sort of pumping air directly up at it, so at least it'll be getting fresh, cool air from the bottom. So I think this is the safer route, so we're going to test this and see how we get on. One thing that is quite nice with this plate, obviously I said they've got an Allen key here, which is quite handy, and it has all the screws listed for what you're going to need throughout the build. And also quite nice, which is unusual in SFX cases, we've actually got a rubber grommet here for passing through your power cables. So again, a nice little feature. So there are some nice touches with this case, so far anyway.
You see.
Something I didn't know about as well, I just figured this would be a standard 2-slot card, but there is a lot of space between the glass and this card. You probably could get away with a 2.5 slot, or at least a 2.25 slot card. So I was worrying and buying a dedicated 2-slot card for this build. I don't think I needed to. I will measure it afterwards, in case anyone needs to know. So we're all up and running, we're into Windows, and I'm just running Unigine Valley in the background so that we can just sort of listen to the noise of the machine. I'm basically running on a pretty much silent profile. I've got the bottom and top fans running at about 30%, so they're pretty much inaudible with these Noctua fans. As you can see, I'm running Heaven, and the temps, I mean, we were in the 50s, so the way that it's pushing the hot air straight out the top and obviously bringing cooling air straight from the bottom, we're getting really good airflow considering we got glass side panels. This is exactly what I was hoping for with this build. Now what I wanted was a sort of quite a minimalistic, attractive looking video editing machine I can sit in the corner of my office for Gary to work on, when he's working on the videos. This seems absolutely perfect for that. I've been really pleased with it. So just to summarise with this machine, the build quality is amazing. I'm really pleased with it. It was £129.99. That's Great British pounds, and that was from Overclockers in the United Kingdom. This is a second Jonsbo case that I've had. I had the T8, which I've reviewed previously. This is the Jonsbo A4. This case is a lot nicer than the T8, and I did like the T8, but this gives you access to a full graphics card, a lot better cooling with the 4 120mm fans, plus you've got the water cooling option if you want it. I personally, I'm a big air cooling fan. I don't particularly like the pump noise of water cooling, so I always go air. Now I only put in a weedy little L9i low profile cooler in here for the moment, and admittedly it's only an i5 10500, but that's still a 6-core 12-thread processor. But the CPU has a 71mm of clearance, so what I'm planning on doing is either popping in a Black Ridge with a 120mm fan or a Noctua L12 so that I can have a lot better cooling performance and a quieter system. But let's say so far this has been running reasonably quiet. The GPU is silent, the case fans are silent, but the L9i does ramp up if you are loading that CPU, so I will be changing that out. Now we've got tempered glass side panels on both sides with this case. They're quite heavily tinted, so you can hardly see, I don't know if you can see from the camera here, you can hardly see the components in the case, I'm guessing, unless you've got quite a lot of RGB in there. Now I'm not a big RGB fan, so I probably won't bother, but I think you're going to need quite a bright RGB strip inside if you really want to show off your components. But the good thing is plenty of room in the case, so it's quite easy to cable manage and hide those cables away, even with the 4 case fans that I've got. Obviously we've got the PSU shroud with an extra 2.5 inch bays as well, which is handy. I need the drive space, so that's going to be good for me. Plus I can see easily another couple of spaces I could squeeze drives in. Now this is just a placeholder build that I've used at the moment. I will be changing this build when it's obviously going in live into production. If I build this again, there's very little information about this PC anywhere, so I didn't have a lot of information to go on. The manual is very rudimentary, so it didn't give me a great deal of help. But if I built this again, I would take the PSU shroud off, build it all in, and then pop that back on afterwards. I didn't realise that could be separated from the PSU. It can with the screw if you remove one of the plexiglass plates with all the screws on it. So that's just a point to note if you are building one of these. If you'd removed that shroud, I think it would have been easier to cable manage and also to put the cables onto the motherboard. I struggled a little bit with that. But having built into this case, other than the PSU, everything else went in beautifully. There's loads of room, and it is still a very compact case. It's smaller. You showed it up against the TU150. It's definitely quite a compact case. Obviously not as compact as my Ghost, but this is a case that's going to be shoved in a corner. I didn't need it to be transportable, so I wanted something compact but good looking and quiet. And I think this easily excels at that. So really impressed, especially for the price. You know, a lot of the M1 and the Dan cases, they're all £200 plus. For £129.99 in the UK, you're getting a very good build quality, and it feels like a very premium case. Just nice little features like the magnetic feet and the dust filters and all the other little bits and pieces that add up to make it a good all-round case. So I hope you've enjoyed this review, and if you have, please hit the subscribe and the notification button, because we will be doing further ITX cases as well as many laptop reviews over the coming months. So please subscribe and you'll be notified of our new content. Thank you for watching.